The first topic that we are going to address will be the discipline of geography, how physical geography relates to it, and how physical geography is a science as well. These are all things you can explore more by reading in the text, and I strongly encourage you to reinforce whatever I talk about in the lecture material with the material that comes from the text. So first off, let's just talk a little bit about the discipline of geography. Geography is sometimes a very different academic discipline than what people think of it. When we think of geography in sort of a popular context, most people think of it as memorizing the locations of countries, cities, mountains, rivers, being able to use GeoGuessr to figure out where some particular part of the world is. But to geographers, the discipline is a lot more rich than this and has a lot of different things going on in it. It's a very difficult discipline to define in some ways because it's quite interdisciplinary. And if you take a look at the little chart in the book, you'll see that it links geography to a wide variety of different related disciplines, everything from history to the natural sciences, which is what this course is about. Sometimes geographers try to define the discipline of geography as a spatial science because the data that we use all has a geographic location. And we'll talk more about that in another lecture that is associated with this module. I like to think of the discipline of geography as being a way that looks at the world through some key themes. Those themes include the theme of location, where places are, how we measure locations, how we determine what the best location for a place is. But that theme can also include a little bit more philosophical concepts like the theme of place. What makes a place look the way that it does? And in the course of physical geography, you'll see that we're often interested with understanding how different physical processes help to make places look the way that they do. Geographers are also interested in the idea of region, this concept that there are different parts of the world that are similar to one another, maybe because they're culturally or politically similar, but in physical geography, it often has to do with things like the types of topography that a region has, or the type of climate that it has. And we'll explore that more in different parts of the course. Geography, because it is a spatial science, is also thinking a lot about how things move geographically from one place to another. We'll talk about that in this course by looking at things like the movement of winds and the patterns that winds form, or the way that streams flow and the patterns that they have as well. And then the final theme that I think helps to tie together a lot of what geographers do and think about is the relationship between humans and the environment, which is, of course, not a theme that is unique to the discipline of geography. Many disciplines look at this, but geography is very interested in how humans are impacted by the environment and how the environment impacts humans as well. There are also some key tools that geographers use that we'll explore in another lecture. Those include maps, that spatial data that I was talking about before, and of course, scientific methodology, because this is a scientific course. Geographers apply these tools, they apply these themes to try to understand big global patterns, to understand why the world looks the way it does, why there are regions in the world. These are some of the things that we'll be exploring in this class as well. We'll be exploring it mostly through the lens of physical geography, though, because this is a natural science general education course. But you should know that there's a complete second side of geography, which is human geography. At UAA, human geography is addressed in Geography 101. That's a social science. Here, we will be looking at the world through the lens of natural science. What is science? Well, science, whether it is a natural science or a human science, is always a systematic search for knowledge through what's called empirical evidence, things that we can see, things that we can measure, things that we can systematically describe. And it will be important throughout this course to reflect from time to time on the importance of scientific knowledge and empiricism. You'll, in fact, be investigating science in each of the assignments that you complete, the physical geography assignments. Scientific knowledge is different from other kinds of knowledge, though sometimes very similar to other kinds of knowledge as well. But what makes it different, what sets it apart, is the fact that empirical evidence is always the evidence that a scientist is interested in. And it can play a really important role in thinking about decisions that our society should make, setting public policy, because it creates a language that can be shared from one culture, from one country, from one group of people to the next. Let's look at the data. Let's ask what the data tell us about some thing in the world that we want to try to understand. So it's very important that everyone understands a little bit about science, which we, again, will be exploring through physical geography this semester, but also be able to understand and critique scientific results a little bit. That's part of a broad, what's called liberal education. And here I'm not referring to liberal versus conservative, just this idea in a liberal education that we need to have some basic tools if we want to keep our society free and open, democratic, and appreciating things like the sciences. Some of the ways that we'll talk about science in this course will be through a discussion of observations, but you should know and explore a little bit in the text how scientific method works, which I'm guessing most people have had exposure to in one form or another. Not only do scientists observe and describe, but they hypothesize about what they think the world will be like and then test those hypotheses. They use the tests and the hypotheses that they have confirmed or not to draw conclusions about the world. Then they share their conclusions with other scientists and publish it through what are called peer-reviewed publications that everyone gets to look at and critique. And as these publications build over time, scientists start to develop larger and larger theories, like the theories that help us to understand Earth systems that I'm going to talk about in just a second. In this course, we'll talk about that scientific method from time to time, but we'll also be exploring some of the skills that are used by scientists in each of the physical geography assignments. Observing things, talking about measurement, how we describe, how we classify, and also how we predict. Many of the big theories in Earth systems and in the earth sciences generally that come from science and scientific explorations are ways to tie together all sorts of different types of natural phenomena that can be observed in an ordered, interrelated, and systematic manner. In this class, we'll be looking at 4 major systems. We'll start with the atmosphere, and after that, we'll move to the hydrosphere, which will actually be tied together with the atmospheric discussion, how water moves around the planet through its systems. Then we'll make a little bit of a hard break in the course, and we'll talk more about the crust of the planet, or its lithosphere, and how it is shaped systematically, and how we can model the surface of the Earth to try to understand it. And then at the end of the course, we'll talk about soils and ecosystems and how the biosphere is created by the very systems that we've already talked about: atmospheric, hydrospheric, and the lithosphere as well. This will be the way that we approach in this course scientific thinking, natural systems, and physical geography.